Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. You're listening to The Lighter Side of Psychosis with your host, Nicholas Zart, and this is a Tap the Source production. This is also the fourth episode of The Lighter Side of Psychosis, where we look around and we take a look at those strange interactions that we have with people, as well as patterns and trends in our society, most of which have to do with what is going on, how things are changing, and also how do we react to it. And I know I'm sort of borderlining here on another show that I have called This Holistic Life, where, well, I spell it with a W, holistic, whole, the whole, meaning the whole. And the whole idea here is holistic with an H can be part of a holistic with a W life, right? I mean, it's the holy part of it, but the holistic with a W incorporates everything. So what I'm going to talk about next could actually easily go into the other one, but I'm going to talk about it from the point of view of how weird people's reactions are. Now, this is, what is today's date? Oh, yeah, here we go. July 20th, 2016. Now, last night we had quite an extraordinary full moon, and that full moon was pretty intense because it was, if you believe in horoscopes and astrology and all that good stuff, it was one of the most intense full moons that we've had for a while. And mea culpa, I love astrology. Yeah, it's hard to explain why bodies that are so far away could have an influence on us here, but it's beyond the scope of this talk. In fact, we'll talk about it on the other show, This Holistic Life. So one of the particularity about this past full moon was that Cancer was in Capricorn. Actually, what was it? Mercury, Pluto, Cancer, and Capricorn were really fighting together. And if you know anything about all of that, these guys are pretty much stellar opposites. And it was different polarities tugging and pushing people, if you believe in that, to come to terms with lots of things. So what it boiled down to was you had the Cancer part of you, which is the part that wants to stay home, the part that wants to make your home homey, all of that good stuff, the inner stuff, the feeling good and cozy inside of you and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, you've got the Capricorn, and that's what it was up against. And Capricorn is really its stellar opposite. Capricorn is outside world, responsibility. It's the goat that struggles but climbs up that mountains nonetheless. And it might or might not struggle, but anyway, it's got that pushing forward kind of idea to it. And so yesterday, that full moon was really aspecting that. It was tugging between what is it that you want to do going outside while still being mindful of that inside. And it was an interesting take. And I didn't think too much about it because although I had been warned at least a good week in advance that it was going to be a doozy, the last few months have been doozies. So I was thinking, yeah, bring it on. You know what? I think I'm used to it by now. So, it happened, and it happened in a weird way. So, first of all, my wife and I, we're at such a level now. We've been together for 20 years that we truly deeply love each other. We truly deeply care about each other. We're there to support each other, and she's just an amazing person. And obviously, I think she supports me more than I support her. But anyway, that's my own little hang-ups there. And so last night, we were, talking on the front porch, and we had I don't want to say disagreement, but we had a misunderstanding. I didn't understand her point of view, or at least I thought I did, and she didn't understand my point of view, and she didn't know what I was asking for. And so that created tension, something which we haven't had in months, and it was very bizarre and very strange, and I felt really bad because I felt like, wow, what did I start here? How did I do this? And she felt bad too because she was like, why did this happen? Why is this happening? But nonetheless, we patched it up, and without even trying to, is just, we're at that level. So that was the first indication that this full moon was definitely happening, and it was happening, and I wasn't even thinking about it. But the next story that happened to me last night, and this is something that only happens to me. I mean, I get in these situations, dear Lord. So last night, we're about to have dinner. She's taking a shower. I'm checking my last few emails on the computer. And all of a sudden, I hear skateboards, and you hear the familiar tekata, 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 the wheels of the skateboard on the sidewalks, right? And all of a sudden, I hear a loud thump, a bang, and something clicked inside of me, completely clicked. I knew exactly what it was. I knew exactly what had happened. I knew these kids were throwing rocks at windows and houses and things like that. Heck, I've been a kid too. I mean, I know what it's like to do stupid things, right? Except I'm 50, right? My generation, I'd like to think we're much smarter than these kids out there today. So I go out there and I see those darn kids riding their skateboards and continuing throwing the rocks, because I would have stopped if it was just me. I would have thought, idiots, and that's it. And something kicked in. And this is where, if you're a man, you definitely know that feeling. All of a sudden, it kicks in. It kicks in, your instincts come out, and they take over you. Your reptilian brain takes over you. And I started running in my flip-flops, my shorts, and no T-shirts, right? And I'm running, but these little, are way ahead of me. So I'm having a hard time. And I'm 50. I'm sort of out of shape now. And I can't really catch up with them. So I walk, and I'm mad. But I'm catching myself. I'm catching myself at times where my consciousness is kicking in, going, and what are you going to do? What are you going to do once you get there? But I want to punch. That's it. I want to go out there and punch. And I was hoping that they were much older than they looked, because I was like, I want to punch these kids out. And it was this weird part of me that came out of nowhere. I wasn't fully aware of. I mean, I knew existed. We all have an animal and a beast side inside of us. But this was different. This was unique. This was a complete takeover. And once in a while, my poor conscious mind was struggling to take over with very limited success. In fact, no success. And I did finally catch up with them. And this is something very strange that happened, because you might have had that happening to you. You might have had that thing where you're in front of something. You're in front of something big. You're in front of a fight. You're in front of something big. And something takes over you. It's sort of an autopilot. You go on autopilot and you start to act. And there's no more thinking. There's just a cold rage that guides you. And this is what I felt. So, of course, there are 5 kids. And they're extremely stupid, because after breaking a window and throwing rocks at windows, they stop at the end of the street and they start to yap between themselves as if nothing had happened. Just incredibly normal, stupid, modern-day kids. On top of it, 3 of them had red shirts, which I thought, wow, that's amazing. I mean, when we were kids, I would have dressed in black, That was the first thing that would have come to my mind. I would have been a little bit more discreet and snuck out and snuck in and out and in through the darkness of the shadows of the night. But no, these kids were moronic. They were stupid. They were just there yapping. So I go straight up to the leader, or the tallest, I guess the oldest, and right up in his face, and I tell you, expletives. You better run next time you throw a stone at my house. And he starts to run, of course, and he is freaked out. And I start to go in a little bit more to show that I'm on top of this. And I see the other 3 little kids just backing off, because they're much younger, and so they're no threat, whatever. But there's another little dude behind me, and he's starting to yell, and I step right into his face. And in the meantime, imagine if you could observe yourself doing this. Observe yourself being completely taken over by this aggressive energy, still in control, but not really knowing what the outcome is going to be, but knowing that you are on top of the situation. And also, I've never said this, but I used to do a lot of martial arts, so I pretty much know how to defend myself. I'm not perfect. I mean, I can fall and kill myself, obviously, and I'm not immune to a gun or even a few knives. So this other kid starts to yell at me, and he's like, hey, that's not cool. You're bothering our friend, or something like that. I can't remember what he said. And so I stare him down, and I yell at him, and he starts to back off. And then the other guy comes in, so I turn around, and I chase him down again. And guess what? All of a sudden, the little shrimp behind me, probably 13, 14 years old, he pulls out a knife on me. This little expletive pulls out a knife on me, in me. I'm 50. This guy is probably 12, 13, 14. I don't know how old he is. He's a kid. He pulls out a knife, and it goes click. And he goes, and this was just the lighter side of psychosis, really completely. This little idiot he comes out with his well-rehearsed line that he's seen over and over and over again from that idiotic Hollywood production of idiocy and that TV world. I'm going to cut you, MF. And I look at him, and I get in his face. And that idiot doesn't have the knife up to me. He's got the knife facing down. So my hand is down there, about to protect myself. And I go in his face, and I go, you better learn how to do it, because if not, I'm going to blah, blah. I don't know what I said. I said something, and I scared the living light out of him. And he started backing off, of course. In fact, he was stumbling, poor kid. And he started backing off. In the meantime, the other guys are sort of, the pack mentality. They're getting back. And I chased them away. And I ran again back at this kid. But the whole time, I'm pumped with adrenaline. In fact, if I would have peed in a cup, there would have been 99% adrenaline. In the meantime, I'm realizing, wow, this is really insane. I mean, this is, there's the whole reason of this show, The Lighter Side of Psychosis, to make fun of or to make light of a situation, and also to raise awareness around the craziness that is happening in this world. But this time it was a little bit more. This time it was a shrimp of a 12 or 13 or 14-year-old kid who pulled out a knife on me. I'm a 50-year-old man. I mean, I could have killed the kid easily twice over. No problem. No challenges there. But he pulls a knife on me. And he spits out this well-rehearsed, regurgitated sentence from, what he's seen on movies or on TVs. I'm going to cut you, MF. I'm thinking, what the hell? So it reminded me of all that surface that we have right now. We get a lot of show but don't be really kind of people. A lot of people who spend a lot of time looking cool, talking cool, but they don't have it. They don't have it in them. They're wusses most of the time, but they're potential dangerous idiots too at the same time, because these guys are ripe for, hey, let's talk about it, terrorism, right? I mean, these guys are ripe for that kind of stuff. These guys are very limited in their thinking. They haven't been educated to think things through. Their parents are probably don't even know what the kids are doing. Maybe some of them would be shocked to see what the kid did. Maybe some of them would go, right on, that kind of, you don't even know what happens. But this is what it reminded me of. And this is what I thought, this is insane. This is insane because that kid pulled a knife on an adult. I mean, this is a telltale sign of a society that is coming to such a wall, such a magnificent wall, where you start to look around and you go, well, what can we do? Obviously, that's the first reaction. What can we do? I did what I thought I had to do. I ran after these kids, and I was going to teach them some sense without harming them or touching them. But I'm not sure if I did that or not, because I was reacting. I was acting out of pure adrenaline. So the kids eventually ran away. I chased them off, and I made sure I had the upper hand the whole time, because you can't let them have the upper hand. But you got to do it very carefully, so I don't advise anybody doing this, because guess what? Another kid could have had a knife, jabbed it in my back, I would have been gone. Or I could have slipped, hurt myself. I mean, lots of things could have happened, right? This was stupid, dangerous, and you should never do it. And, of course, your rational mind knows that, but your impulsive side does not know that. So finally, they flee like the perfect little coward chickens that they are, and they flee completely. And this is where the other dumbfounding event happens. A car parked, by the way, in a non-parking zone, with this young girl inside the car opening the window and saying, hey, stop harassing those children, you older guy, men, whatever she said, or something like that. I couldn't believe it. Not only this little shrimp, 12-year-old kid, pulls a knife at me, but this dingbat, who doesn't know anything at all, starts to weigh in on something she has no idea about. So, of course, I yell at her and I say, what the hell are you talking about? Do you even know what you're talking about? These kids were throwing rocks on houses and breaking windows. What the hell are you talking about? So, of course, she closes her windows. She doesn't apologize or anything like that, right? Because, hey, that would mean some sort of humility, some sort of intelligence process. But no, there was no reflective process there. She closes her window, and I was pissed off, man. I was pissed off. You wouldn't want to talk to me anyway. But it got me thinking, on another thing is, so, I did my duty. I went out there. I ran after them. I made sure I remembered them, how they were dressed and everything as much as I could because I was pumped up on adrenaline. And so I called the cops because I thought, you know what? Had they not pulled a knife on me, whatever, it would have been a lesson. Had they only thrown one rock at one house, that would have been okay. But they broke a window, which I didn't know at the time. So I decided to call the cops because I was like, you know what? I mean, a 12, 13-year-old kid that pulls a knife on an adult, this is definitely asking for problems. This is going to be a troubled kid at some point. So I should call the cops. And I'm calling cops, and they ask me if I want to file charges. And I'm thinking, at first I'm thinking, yeah, of course, this is my civic duty. This is my civic responsibility. I'm part of that generation that actually had civic duties courses in high school. So this is what I need to do for my society, right? For every right, there is a duty. Well, duh. Except these kids don't understand that, obviously. And so I'm still pumped, and I'm telling the cop and everything, yeah, over the phone, right? But my adrenaline is starting to come down a heck of a lot. And so all of a sudden, I'm thinking, well, hang on a second. I mean, I'm going to have to go to court. And he goes, yeah, blah 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 blah. And I'm saying, but my address will not be on it, right? Well, you can have that redacted. And I said, yeah, you better, and my name and everything too. And, of course, I'm chickening out at that stage because I'm thinking, you never know how people react. You don't know. Maybe this kid has an older brother who's a gang member. Lord knows what's going to happen, what could happen, and you don't want it to happen. So this is where something very interesting also happened. The police officer said, and he was so smart. He did it in such a way, and I know he crossed the line, but he did it in such an intelligent way and such a noble way that I commend that person to this day. He said, think about it. This kid pulled a knife on an adult. What do you think is going to happen next? And he was right. He was so right. So I said, okay, I'll press charges. So the police officers came, and that lasted, again, another good half hour. And by the way, they were very quick. They made it extremely quick. And we talked easily another good half hour. And I have a good relationship with cops because, I grew up like any other idiotic kids. Cops are so bad. They're dumb. They don't do anything but chase good people around. And one day, I did a ride-along with a cop, and I totally got it. Oh, my gosh, these guys, wow. I don't understand how and who they are and how they function and everything, but I did a ride-along in the north of Long Beach in the dead of night when the prostitutes are out, the gang members are out, people beat up on their wives and partners and things like that. I did it, and it was fascinating because my officer and I had such frank talks. Mano a mano. It was amazing. We talked about marijuana, drugs, alcohol, crime, sex, music, everything you name it. We talked about it. And we got along. We got along really well. I understood him. He understood me. It was amazing. But then he also told me something. He told me something I never forgot to this day. And he said, Nicholas, 99% of the time, it's true. I don't know why they pay me as much as they pay me. But then again, that 1% of the time, they don't pay me enough to see the things that I see. And we were at a stop sign, and he looks at me, he turns around and looks at me, and he says, how do you react in front of a baby with a bullet hole in it? And it just dawned on me at that stage that, wow, these guys have a lot of balls, man. They go out there, and exactly like what he told me, he says, I put on my uniform in the morning, I have no idea if at the end of the day that uniform will have a bullet hole in it. Heck, I have no idea if I'm going to come back home at all. I have no idea if I'm going to be dead at the end of the day in a hospital or if I'm going to be lucky enough to be with my wife. And that was when I had a full realization, wow, this is just another human being just like me who answered some sort of call of a career path or whatever, and he is out there doing his best. Now, of course, they're bad cops, and of course, they're good cops, and of course, they're good politicians and bad politicians. Sure, more bad politicians than good politicians, but that's the way it is, right? I mean, you've got good apples and you've got rotten apples. But the one thing that I noticed is, well, guess what? There are more good cops than they are bad cops, and individually, they're all wonderful people, and yes, you still have that one crazy dude, but overall, these guys risk their lives selflessly for you and I. And it's amazing that you and I, for the most part, we don't really care about cops, right? I mean, you look at the news and it's always the cops shooting this person, and it's always the face of the person who was shot, which, by the way, didn't happen in a vacuum most of the time. There was a reason why that person got in the way of that bullet, right? And of course, there are plenty of times when it wasn't necessary, it wasn't warranted or anything like that. But there are never any pictures of the cops who die, right, in a light of fire or something like that. Now, this is not to say that this show is about vaunting cops or supporting cops or anything like that. I mean, cops do a very important role in our society. It's needed. It needs to happen. And it's important. Okay, fine, done deal and everything. But this is what the conversation more or less turned into after these guys came over and, they took my deposition and all of this and all of that. And it was right then that I also realized, God, how hard I mean, I'm a journalist. I'm really good at remembering things. I'm good at observing. I can tell you what you're wearing most of the time. I'll remember anything, speech impediment, anything like that. I'll remember it. I see it. It's very clear in my mind. But I was pumped up on adrenaline, and I remember most of all the facts. But one question could really derail you. Was it in the right hand or the left hand? Well, yeah, it was in the right hand. But now in my mind, I'm seeing it in the left hand too now. So it was interesting. It was a great realization, and it really was one of those situations where you really think, this is a perfect episode for the Lighter Side of Psychosis. I mean, I was a kid too. You were a kid too. Everybody, we were all kids, right? I mean, we've all made stupid mistakes, and we all did stupid things, and we learn how to not do it, because guess what? It's a freaking society. I live with you, you live with me. I'm not going to punch you in the face. You're not going to punch me in the face. And even if we do, we shake hands after that. Everything is fine. But we know how to not aggravate things. We know to not push the barriers of our foundations, the structure of our society. But these kids had no idea of that. Not only these kids had no idea of that, but they were, ultimately pretty dumb. I mean, they were not smart kids by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, you're throwing rocks at houses. You're breaking a window. You're wearing a red T-shirt. You stop at the end of the street and you yap amongst each other. Whoa, what gives, man? And then you pull out a knife on an older man and you spit out a typical Hollywood line or something you've seen on any given TV show. Wow. Flabbergasting, man. I mean, talk about being dumbfounded. I was dumbfounded. I could not believe it. But it also made me realize one thing. And this is what I'm going to end the show with, is that I'm obviously very vocal. I'm someone who has no problem getting involved. And I'm one of those, maybe I'm a retarded soul, but I used to believe it was worth fighting it for. It was worth doing something about it, right? Well, when I got home and I was talking to these two cops, there was another lady walking with her mom. And she told me that she caught up with them. She actually ran after them and she caught up with them. And she saw them and she knows who they are or whatever they are and all that good stuff and everything. And I looked at her and I was like, you and I are the only ones who ran after them in our whole street? Meaning, most people would rather just stay home safe, not get caught up with anything, play it safe, replace the window, and hope for the best. Wow, but that kind of philosophy for me, hasn't yielded great results so far, because guess what? Somehow it sounds like it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse, right? I mean, an Afghan man living in Germany, a refugee, takes an axe and starts killing people because now all of a sudden he wants to be a martyr. A guy in the south of France of Nice rents a truck, runs over people. Things like that are happening almost on a weekly basis now. There's a shooting in the United States every single day, if not more. Actually, more. And I was thinking, God, it's amazing. These people just stayed home, and that's all they did. And only myself and this girl, this young, frail girl, by the way, good-looking girl too, she just went out there. She went out there, took her car, and ran after them. Wow. And you know what? For the first time in my life, for now 50 years that I've been on this planet, I'm actually giving up. I'm actually starting to think, you know what? It isn't worth it after all. It really isn't worth it. I mean, I could have died yesterday. I could have been stabbed. I could have been, I don't know, something else could have happened. Or a bunch of people could have just come out and started beating me up because I was chasing after kids. Who knows? I mean, this is, the kind of weird reactions people have these days. And for the first time in my life, I'm starting to really question whether or not it is important to get involved. It is important to do things. I mean, after all, when I look at politics around, for goodness gracious, we have Trump as a presidential candidate, and we have Hillary Clinton as a presidential candidate. We even have, we used to have Bernie Sanders, right? And well, these guys are all, Bernie and Trump are extreme examples, but, well, Clinton, she's just, the institution, she's, as far as I'm concerned, neither a Democrat or Republican. She's just in the middle of the road, and she represents that institution. But she's also the quintessential reflection of our society, that lack of involvement we've had, that lack of holding these politicians and leaders accountable to their responsibilities. And for the first time in my life, I'm starting to think that, you know what? You can't beat the sheer insane number of people not doing anything about it. So it is the lighter side of psychosis, because I think for the first time in my life, I'm starting to think that it's not worth it. That maybe after all, you know what it is, and that it is a transition period of our history and society, that things are really going in some really seriously crazy path. Hopefully it is just a path. Hopefully it is just a sort of, hinging moment in our society. But it's unnerving, it's uncanny, and it is pretty sad to see it happen. And now I understand people who don't react. Now I understand people who stay home. And next time, you know what? I might just stay home. I might just not open the door. And you know what? I have swords at home. I'm going to put them in strategic places. And if anybody comes in, well, they're going to get hacked. That's the kind of reasoning that is seeping into my mind, and I'm sure it's in a lot of people's mind these days. So anyway, you've been listening to The Lighter Side of Psychosis. This was a bit of a somber episode, and I apologize. We'll find other more cheerful, if not bizarre, episodes. And in the meantime, if you'd like to contact me, if you have any stories that you'd like to share, I'd be very happy to talk about them. Heck, why not? We can even do an interview, and we can talk about what you guys are finding out there that is so strange and so bizarre, and that is making people react in the weirdest way that they react. So you've been listening to The Lighter Side of Psychosis. This is our 4th episode. You're listening with your host, Nicholas Zart, and this is a Tap the Source production. Please contact me at Nicholas at Car News Cafe. That's Nicholas, no H. Car News Cafe is CarNewsCafe.com, and you can find me under my name with Google+, LinkedIn, and Facebook. It's simply Nicholas, no H, Zart, Z-A-R-T. And if not on Twitter, it's the Electric Examiner, no E before the R, the last one. And on Instagram, it's Green Performance. And so I wish you a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and we'll talk to you very soon again. Bye-bye.